When people talk about the British royal family, they often imagine huge palaces, golden gates, and long hallways filled with priceless art. But the real home of Prince William, Princess Kate, and their 3 children is nothing like that. Instead of choosing the grandest residence or the most expensive palace, they picked a quiet, charming place tucked away in the peaceful green space of Windsor. This home is called Adelaide Cottage, and even though it is smaller than many royal houses, it holds a long and surprising history. Today, Adelaide Cottage is where the Prince and Princess of Wales live with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. But it is also a stepping stone to another special home that plays an important role in their future. That home is Forest Lodge, a stunning Georgian-style building hidden in the woods of Windsor. Many royal insiders believe Forest Lodge will one day become the family's permanent, forever home. And its quiet beauty adds a deeper meaning to the Wales family's life in Windsor. To fully understand how these 2 houses connect to the family's story, we have to begin with Adelaide Cottage itself, where they live now, and where they have created a peaceful life away from the busy world of royal duties. A new beginning for the Wales family. In 2022, Prince William and Princess Kate made a life-changing decision. They left London, moved away from the crowded city streets, and settled in Windsor with their children. At the time, Prince George was 10 years old, Princess Charlotte was 8, and Prince Louis was only 5. The family chose Adelaide Cottage because it offered something they could not find in Kensington Palace: privacy, freedom, and a normal family life. Their London home, apartment 1A in Kensington Palace, is still theirs, and they still use it for important work or official events. But Kensington is busy. Tourists constantly pass through, reporters are everywhere, and there is always movement around the palace grounds. Raising 3 young children in such an environment can be stressful. Windsor, on the other hand, feels like a different world. Adelaide Cottage sits quietly within Windsor Home Park, a massive green area surrounding the famous Windsor Castle. The property is close enough to the castle for the family to walk there, but far enough to feel peaceful and protected. The timing of their move also connected them more closely to Queen Elizabeth II, who was living nearby at Windsor Castle. Sadly, she passed away shortly after the family settled in, but their move helped create a more united royal presence in Windsor during her final months. Today, the family also lives near King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and Prince Edward with Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, who all spend significant time in the area. A cottage with a royal past. Even though it is called a cottage, Adelaide Cottage is not a small, simple house. It is a historic royal residence, with deep ties to the British monarchy. The cottage was built in 1831 by the famous architect Sir Geoffrey Wyatville, who redesigned large parts of Windsor Castle. At first, the house was called Adelaide Lodge, but later, its name was softened to Adelaide Cottage to match its cozy style and relaxed purpose. It was meant to be a peaceful retreat, not a grand palace. The cottage was built using materials from John Nash's Royal Lodge, which stood nearby in Windsor Great Park. This reuse of royal materials gives Adelaide Cottage a rare connection to older buildings that no longer exist. The home was created for Queen Adelaide, the wife of King William IV, who ruled from 1830 to 1837. Newspapers at the time described the cottage as extraordinarily elegant, and it quickly became known for its beauty and charm. Inside the cottage were 2 main rooms, the Queen's Rest Apartment and the Page's Room. Elegant furniture from the former royal box and a marble fireplace designed in the Greco-Egyptian style made the interior feel luxurious, but still warm. During the reign of Queen Victoria, the cottage was used as a special guest house where important visitors could enjoy a quiet escape. Queen Victoria herself often visited Adelaide Cottage. She loved walking through its gardens, having breakfast outside, or drinking tea under the shade of the trees. A private road was even built just for her trips there. One emotional piece of history remains on the grounds: the grave of Dash, Queen Victoria's beloved King Charles spaniel. The little dog is buried in the garden, with a memorial stone placed above him, a house of grace and favor. In 1941, Adelaide Cottage took on a new role. It became what the royal family calls a grace and favor home, a property owned by the monarch but offered for use to certain royal relatives, staff members, or individuals who served the crown. One of the first modern residents was Group Captain Peter Townsend, a well-known Royal Air Force hero, and a close assistant to King George VI. Townsend liked some things about the cottage, but he also had many complaints. He wrote that the house was freezing cold during winter because it only had 2 radiators. Electricity came from weak cables connected to Windsor Castle, and the power was so low that he could only use 1 vacuum cleaner or a tiny heater at a time. Inside the house, the wallpaper was heavy, dark, and old-fashioned. The wooden furniture felt gloomy and outdated. One writer in the 1960s even called the cottage shabby, despite its historical importance. Still, the cottage played a major part in one of the most famous royal love stories of the 20th century. A scandal that shocked the royal family. While living at Adelaide Cottage, Peter Townsend met Princess Margaret, the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth II. Margaret was still a teenager when she fell deeply in love with the handsome war hero, who was 15 years older than she was. She later said that it was love at first sight. Their relationship grew quickly, especially because Townsend often accompanied the princesses during their public duties. But their love story became public during Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953, and it caused a worldwide scandal. Tabloids reported every detail. People questioned whether their relationship began before Townsend's divorce in 1951. Even today, TV shows like The Crown continue to retell their story. In the end, Princess Margaret chose her royal duties over her personal happiness. She ended the relationship with Townsend to protect her place in the royal line of succession. Their heartbreak became one of the most remembered stories in modern royal history. Renovations through the years. After Townsend left the cottage in 1955, Adelaide Cottage went through several upgrades. Oddly enough, a small waterfall once flowed down a rock behind the house, creating dampness and humidity. This waterfall was removed in 1963 to protect the structure. Further renovations happened in the 1990s, and a major restoration took place in 2015, carefully updating the home while still preserving its historical design. Many original features, like the marble Greco-Egyptian fireplace and the main bedroom's vaulted ceiling, decorated with gilded dolphins and rope ornaments taken from a 19th century royal yacht, are still part of the house today. Those unique details give the cottage a romantic storybook feeling that makes it one of the most charming houses owned by the royal family. Adelaide Cottage looks small compared to places like Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, but that is exactly why Prince William and Princess Kate chose it. They didn't want a grand mansion filled with endless rooms and loud hallways. They wanted a house where their children could run, play, and grow up feeling normal. And even though the cottage is historic, it has been designed to feel warm, comfortable, and inviting. From the outside, the first thing people notice is the soft, light pink front facade, which almost gives the house a dreamy, storybook appearance. White trim lines the windows, gutters, and roof edges, and thick green trees wrap around the home, making it feel hidden from the world. Instead of wide stone steps or tall palace doors, the cottage welcomes you with a more personal, gentle charm. A home that feels like a safe haven. Inside Adelaide Cottage are 4 bedrooms, just enough for the children and their parents. Unlike other royal residences, the family does not have staff living inside the home with them. All assistants, security aides, and household workers come in only when needed. This allows the family to enjoy something rare for royals: quiet mornings, private dinners, and simple family time without constant supervision or interruption. This lifestyle is a big part of why the family moved to Windsor in the first place. Princess Kate has always said she wants her children to grow up with strong values, kindness, and independence. She encourages them to help with chores, make their beds, and learn responsibility. Even though they are royal children, she tries her best to raise them just like any other kids. Their nanny, Maria Barallo, who has been with the family since Prince George was a baby, still helps during busy times, but she no longer lives with them full-time. This gives the children a sense of freedom while still keeping their routine steady and safe. Rooms filled with history and new life. Even though they never released official photos of the inside, historians and former residents have described Adelaide Cottage with great detail. The house contains a main bedroom with a vaulted ceiling, decorated with gilded dolphins and golden rope designs, which originally came from a 19th century royal yacht, a Greco-Egyptian marble fireplace from the Regency period, historic Victorian-era details, including decorative trim, original beams, and classic window frames, a large kitchen space designed for modern family living, a cozy office where Prince William and Princess Kate can work from home when not attending royal duties. Even though the cottage is nearly 200 years old, it has been carefully updated. The 2015 renovation kept the classic beauty of the house while also adding better heating, stronger electricity, modern appliances, safer wiring, and updated bathrooms. Everything was redone to ensure the family could live comfortably without needing constant repairs. Outside, the gardens are one of the most magical parts of the property. Old drawings show that the grounds used to include fountains, circular flower beds, and well-trimmed paths. While we don't know exactly how the gardens look today, the surrounding area of Windsor is filled with flower fields, old oaks, and peaceful walking paths. The children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, have an entire natural world to explore right outside their front door. They can play soccer, chase butterflies, or walk their family dog, Orla, across the spacious lawns. Their parents love that the kids can be outside without flashing cameras or big crowds. A place away from the spotlight. For most of their lives, the children lived at Kensington Palace, where tourists gather every day. There were buses outside, people taking pictures, and constant noise. Even though the palace has strong security, it was nearly impossible for the family to take a quiet walk or play in the garden without being watched. At Adelaide Cottage, things are different. The cottage sits in the heart of Windsor Home Park, a protected 655-acre area filled with greenery. The only people allowed inside the grounds are authorized staff and the royal family. There are no public tours, no gates for visitors to gather around, and no crowds. For the first time, the children can enjoy a normal childhood, similar to how Prince William and Prince Harry grew up in the countryside during parts of their younger years. This privacy also helps Princess Kate and Prince William balance their roles as parents and future king and queen. They can spend mornings taking their children to school, afternoons attending royal duties, and evenings eating together without cameras watching. The quiet life at Adelaide Cottage also gives Princess Kate space to continue her early childhood projects, which she is very passionate about. Windsor is calming, peaceful, and far from the noise of London. It suits the more down-to-earth image the couple hopes to show the world. Nearby family connections. Living in Windsor also means the couple is closer to several other members of the royal family. King Charles III and Queen Camilla spend part of the year at Windsor Castle. Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, live close by at Bagshot Park, only a short drive away. Being near family helps create a more united royal presence in Windsor and gives the children more chances to see their relatives. It also strengthens the idea that Windsor is becoming the heart of the royal family again, just as it was during Queen Elizabeth II's later years. The cottage's quiet past meets its busy present. Of course, not everything about the cottage is new. Old residents have left stories behind that still echo around the house. One of the most famous, as mentioned earlier, is Peter Townsend, the Royal Air Force hero who lived in the cottage during the 1940s and 1950s. Back then, the cottage was much colder and darker than it is today. Townsend often complained about icy winters, low electricity, and gloomy wallpapers. But even with these flaws, the house was part of one of the biggest royal scandals of the 20th century, his forbidden romance with Princess Margaret. Today, the cottage is warm, bright, and updated, but the stories of the past still give it a certain charm. The history of Queen Adelaide, Queen Victoria, and even Princess Margaret adds layers of emotion to the house. It is a place where old royal memories quietly blend with new ones. Like a new life, but not the final destination. Although the Wales family loves their quiet life at Adelaide Cottage, royal insiders say this is likely not their permanent home. The cottage is comfortable and charming, but it is small by royal standards, especially for a family with growing children and future responsibilities. This brings us to another property inside Windsor that has gained increasing attention: Forest Lodge. While Adelaide Cottage is their present, Forest Lodge is expected to be their forever home. Forest Lodge is larger, grander, and more private, tucked deep inside the woodland areas of Windsor. It has the charm of a Georgian masterpiece and the calm beauty of nature surrounding it. It offers everything a future king's family might need: space, safety, history, and a sense of timelessness. But to understand how Forest Lodge connects to their future, we must first understand the full story of Adelaide Cottage and why the move to Windsor was so important for the family. Life at Adelaide Cottage is very different from the busy and crowded experience the family once had in London. Here in Windsor, Prince William, Princess Kate, and their children enjoy a routine that feels calmer, more peaceful, and much more private. Even though they are part of the most famous royal family in the world, their everyday schedule inside the cottage looks surprisingly normal for a family of 5. Let's take a closer look at how their days unfold, how the children's school fits into their new life, and how the cottage supports the lifestyle the family wants. Before we finally step into the story of Forest Lodge, their expected forever home. A regular morning in an extraordinary family. A typical school day begins early at Adelaide Cottage. The family wakes up quietly, without the noises of traffic, crowds, or tourists that echoed around Kensington Palace. Instead, the morning air in Windsor smells like fresh grass, trees, and soft dew. Princess Kate has always believed in giving her children structure and independence. She likes them to have simple routines, like brushing their teeth, getting dressed, and helping pack their school bags. Even though they have help from their nanny, Maria Barallo, the children are still encouraged to do things on their own, something the princess feels is important for their confidence. Breakfast at Adelaide Cottage is often shared as a family around the kitchen table. It is not a formal royal meal, no fancy tables or silverware. Instead, it is the kind of breakfast most kids have: cereal, fruit, toast, and tea. Once everyone is ready, the children head out the door to their school. Closest to their school, a key. Reason for the move. Another big reason the Wales family chose Adelaide Cottage is its closeness to their children's school. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis all attend Lambrook School, a private school located only a short drive away. Lambrook offers everything the family values: strong academics, a healthy and active lifestyle, wide outdoor spaces, plenty of opportunities for sports and arts, a safe environment away from the public eye. At Lambrook, the children can join clubs, take swimming lessons, play music, learn languages, and make friends without being surrounded by photographers. This is exactly what Prince William and Princess Kate wanted: a school where their children could learn and grow without pressure. Kensington Palace was almost 45 minutes away from Lambrook. That long drive each morning and afternoon would have been stressful and tiring. Adelaide Cottage, however, is close enough that the family can have a calm morning and still arrive at school easily. Some days, the parents even do the school drop-off themselves. This experience of being active, involved parents is very important to them. Why? Adelaide Cottage needed no renovation. One thing that made the cottage especially appealing was that it needed no renovations before the family moved in. Many royal homes require repairs, updates, or even major construction before anyone can live in them. For example, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle spent around $2.6 million renovating Frogmore Cottage. But Adelaide Cottage was already in excellent condition thanks to the 2015 restoration. This meant the family could move in quickly. No construction noise, no large teams of workers, no safety concerns for the children. The house had updated electricity, working heating, secure doors and windows, and a clean, fresh interior. The biggest tasks were simply painting, decorating, and choosing comfortable furniture for the kids. The prince and princess wanted a house that wouldn't distract from their responsibilities. They needed something move-in ready, and Adelaide Cottage was perfect. Everyday family moments in the cottage. Even though Adelaide Cottage is historic and elegant, the Wales family uses it in very normal ways. In the evenings, the family has dinner together, usually a home-cooked meal. Princess Kate enjoys cooking, and she often prepares simple, healthy dishes that the children like. After dinner, the kids sometimes play outside, do homework, read books, or spend time with their parents. The cozy layout of the house helps everyone stay connected. It is not a huge mansion with rooms spread far apart. Instead, it is compact and warm, with everything close by. At night, the family enjoys true privacy. The cottage sits inside the large Windsor estate grounds with no public access. There are no tour groups, crowds, or tourists walking past. Only authorized staff and the royal family can enter, which allows the Wales family to enjoy quiet evenings without interruptions. A cottage with a royal garden. History. The outdoor space around the cottage has changed over the years, but old photos and drawings show what it once looked like. In the 1800s, the garden included a circular flower bed, a stone fountain, trimmed hedges, small bridges, and a variety of blooming flowers and shrubs. These details made the garden feel like a peaceful paradise. While it is unclear how much of this layout remains today, the surrounding Windsor landscape is filled with ancient oak trees, rolling fields, open lawns, and woodland paths. The children love playing outside with their dog Orla, exploring nature, and spending time in the sunshine. The environment of the Windsor estate encourages walking, running, and outdoor play, and this allows the children to grow up healthy and active. This environment is quiet and natural, much different from the urban environment of London. A house that balances two worlds. While Adelaide Cottage gives the Wales family the peaceful life they want, it also keeps them close to duty. Windsor Castle is just a short walk away. This lets Prince William and Princess Kate attend events, meetings, and official duties without traveling far. They can be parents and working royals at the same time. This balance is rare in royal life, and it is one of the biggest reasons they chose Windsor. But as lovely as Adelaide Cottage is, it is not meant to serve as a permanent, long-term residence for a future king. It has 4 bedrooms, limited office space, and small common areas. As the children grow older, and as Prince William moves closer to becoming king, the family will require a larger home. That future home is Forest Lodge. And now, the story begins to shift toward the house that may one day become one of the most important royal residences in Britain. Introducing Forest Lodge, the future forever home. Deep inside the private woodland areas of Windsor sits a Georgian masterpiece hidden away from public view. This is Forest Lodge, a breathtaking estate that many believe will soon become the permanent home of Prince William, Princess Kate, and their children. Forest Lodge is not just bigger than Adelaide Cottage. It is grander, more secluded, and more architecturally significant. Where Adelaide Cottage offers warmth and charm, Forest Lodge offers timeless beauty, perfect proportions, and deep historical roots. Many royal experts say that when Prince William becomes king, Forest Lodge will likely be his family's primary home, much like how Windsor Castle served Queen Elizabeth II during the later decades of her life. Forest Lodge is a place where the family can plant their long-term roots. It has more land, more rooms, stronger security, deeper seclusion, and a more monumental architectural design. But to understand why Forest Lodge is so special, we must explore its history, its structure, its gardens, and the reasons why it has become the royal family's most carefully protected hidden gem. And that is exactly where we will go next. Forest Lodge is one of the most quietly impressive properties connected to the British royal family. Yet very few people have ever seen it up close. Sitting deep inside the wooded heart of Windsor, the estate feels hidden, almost like a secret that nature carefully protects. If Adelaide Cottage is the family's gentle retreat, Forest Lodge is the place where their future is slowly taking shape. The house stands surrounded by tall trees, long grassy fields, and peaceful walking paths that stretch in every direction. Its atmosphere feels calm and untouched, as if time moves more slowly there. This deep sense of quiet is part of what makes Forest Lodge so appealing to Prince William, Princess Kate, and their growing children. It offers space, privacy, and safety, everything a future king's family will eventually need. But Forest Lodge is more than just land and trees. Its history, design, and structure make it a home fit for a royal family preparing for the next generation. A Georgian masterpiece. Hidden in the woods. Forest Lodge was designed during the Georgian era, a time known for architecture that focused on balance, beauty, symmetry, and quiet elegance. The house likely features large sash windows, clean lines, and warm brickwork that glows softly in the sunlight. Buildings from this period often feel timeless because their proportions are so carefully balanced. Forest Lodge reflects that style perfectly. Walking up to the house, visitors would probably notice its wide front, calm color tones, and the way it blends naturally with the trees around it. Some Georgian homes were meant to impress from a distance, looking bold and grand, but others, like Forest Lodge, were created to feel peaceful and connected to nature. Even though the house is larger than Adelaide Cottage, it has a gentle charm that makes it feel welcoming, not overwhelming. Inside, the rooms most likely continue this calm feeling. Georgian houses were famous for tall ceilings, long hallways, spacious entryways, and large windows that bring in natural light. Forest Lodge probably has bright sitting rooms, comfortable family spaces, and several floors of bedrooms, enough room for 3 children who will soon become teenagers and young adults. The layout of the home allows for privacy while still keeping everyone close enough to feel connected. For a family as busy and often stressed as the Wales family, a place like this offers the perfect blend of beauty and comfort. A perfect home for a growing royal family. Even though Adelaide Cottage is a wonderful home, it has a limited amount of space. As Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis grow older, they will need separate bedrooms, study areas, and personal space for hobbies and schoolwork. They will eventually invite friends over, join more after-school activities, and need more room to enjoy their teenage years. Forest Lodge has enough space to support all of this. Its large rooms, wide hallways, and generous outdoor areas make it ideal for a growing royal family. It also offers many quiet corners and peaceful rooms, where Princess Kate can work on her projects, and Prince William can handle state duties without leaving the property. In a few years, the children will also begin taking on more public roles. As the future king, Prince George will have responsibilities earlier than most children his age. Forest Lodge gives the family a secure environment where he can prepare for these duties while still enjoying the comfort of a family home. Security is another reason the estate is so important. Because Forest Lodge is tucked deep into the wooded parts of Windsor, it is naturally protected from public view. This allows the family to move freely, walk outside, and enjoy private moments without worrying about cameras or crowds. Why Forest Lodge is expected to become their forever home. Several reasons point to Forest Lodge becoming the long-term residence of the Wales family. First, the estate's size and structure are far more suitable for a future king and queen. When Prince William eventually takes the throne, he will need a home that can handle meetings, receptions, planning sessions, and family life all at once. Adelaide Cottage cannot support that kind of activity, but Forest Lodge can. Second, the property's privacy is unmatched. Because it sits deeper inside the Windsor estate than many other homes, it offers a level of seclusion that Adelaide Cottage cannot provide. Over time, as the children grow up and their public roles increase, having such a private base will be essential. Third, Forest Lodge holds the calm, quiet beauty that both Prince William and Princess Kate value so deeply. They both love the outdoors and want their children to grow up connected to nature. Forest Lodge offers miles of woodland, gentle hills, and green meadows. This environment allows the family to spend time walking, playing, exercising, and enjoying the fresh air every day. Fourth, the property has the historical elegance expected of a future royal residence. While not as grand as Windsor Castle or as formal as Buckingham Palace, Forest Lodge carries a quiet dignity. Its Georgian design makes it feel important without being overwhelming. This level of understated royal charm is exactly the type of image William and Kate have tried to build over the years. A home built for the future, inspired by the past. Forest Lodge may not be famous like Balmoral or Sandringham, but it represents a different kind of royal lifestyle, one built around family, privacy, and long-term stability. In many ways, it represents the modern royal family's values. To understand its deeper meaning, it helps to think about how the family uses their current home. Adelaide Cottage is perfect for now, but it is small and simple. It suits the early years of the children's lives, when their needs are basic and their schedules are manageable. But as soon as they step into their teenage years, everything will change. Schoolwork will grow heavier, personal interests will develop, public expectations will rise, the family will need more room, more protection, and more space to grow together. Forest Lodge is the answer to this future. It provides the larger foundation needed for the next stage of their lives. It also reflects a pattern seen throughout royal history. Many monarchs have chosen private country estates as their preferred homes. Queen Elizabeth II loved Windsor Castle because it felt peaceful and separate from political chaos. Queen Victoria adored Osborne House for the same reason. King George V liked Sandringham for its calm and privacy. In the same way, Prince William and Princess Kate seem drawn to places where their children can grow up safely and quietly. Forest Lodge fits into this royal tradition perfectly. The natural beauty that surrounds Forest Lodge. Nature is one of the most powerful features of the estate. The woodland area surrounding Forest Lodge stretches over wide fields and tall forests. It is alive with birds, deer, and countless plants that give every season its own beauty. In spring, flowers bloom in bright colors. In summer, the leaves create a cool green roof that shades the ground below. In autumn, the forest glows with gold, orange, and red. And in winter, frost paints everything in silver. For the children, growing up in such an environment would be unforgettable. They could explore trees, climb branches, collect pine cones, ride their bikes, build forts, and learn about nature firsthand. The area is safe, protected, and far from the noise of city life. This connection to nature is also important to Princess Kate, who believes that being outdoors is essential for children's mental and emotional well-being. Forest Lodge provides the kind of natural environment she has always dreamed of giving her kids. A place where royal duties and family life can coexist. Forest Lodge is large enough to support both private life and public duties. If needed, the estate could hold small meetings, private gatherings, and quiet work sessions. It may also include areas for staff, security teams, and official vehicles without disturbing the family's daily activities. This balance of privacy and duty makes it an ideal long-term home for a future king and queen. Adelaide Cottage provides peace and comfort, but Forest Lodge provides a permanent foundation, a place where the family can settle for decades. Forest Lodge stands in quiet contrast to Adelaide Cottage, yet the two homes share a deeper connection in the story of Prince William, Princess Kate, and their children. Adelaide Cottage represents the beginning of a new chapter for the Wales family, while Forest Lodge represents the chapter that is still to come. To understand why Forest Lodge seems destined to become their forever home, it helps to compare the two places and explore how each one fits into the royal family's long-term future. A tale of two homes, Adelaide Cottage and Forest Lodge. Adelaide Cottage is small, cozy, and charming. It is a place where young children can enjoy a peaceful life, and where the family can form routines without feeling overwhelmed. Its size keeps everyone close together, and its soft colors and gentle design make it feel warm and intimate. When the family moved in, the cottage provided exactly what they needed, a calm environment away from the rush of London. Forest Lodge, however, feels like the next step. Everything about it suggests room for growth. Its spacious rooms, elegant hallways, and larger grounds allow each family member to have more space, especially as the children get older. Where Adelaide Cottage feels like a storybook home for early childhood, Forest Lodge feels like the estate where the family can build long-term traditions, host gatherings, and guide their children into adulthood. The two homes are not competitors. They are different stages of the same journey. Windsor, the setting that brings both homes together. Both Adelaide Cottage and Forest Lodge are part of Windsor, an area that holds deep meaning for the royal family. Windsor has been a royal home for nearly 1,000 years, long before Buckingham Palace existed. Kings and queens have walked its paths, celebrated milestones in its halls, and found peace in its forests. For Prince William and Princess Kate, Windsor represents stability. It is a place where they can raise their children with strong values, kindness, and a connection to nature. It is also close to other family members, which helps keep their support system strong. By choosing Windsor, they are not just selecting a place to live, they are choosing a community, a lifestyle, and a safe environment for the next generation of royals. Windsor also carries emotional weight because of Queen Elizabeth II. She spent her final years there and considered it her true home. Living in Windsor allows the Wales family to continue her legacy and remain close to a place that meant so much to her. Adelaide Cottage is their present. Forest Lodge will likely be their future. But Windsor is the foundation that holds both homes together. Why space matters. More as the children grow. When the family first moved from London to Windsor, the children were still young. Their needs were simple: space to play, privacy from crowds, and a home where they could sleep safely and comfortably. Adelaide Cottage gave them all of this, but now the children are getting older. Prince George is moving closer to the responsibilities of being a future king. Princess Charlotte has become confident, active, and independent, always known for her personality and leadership. Prince Louis, filled with energy and curiosity, continues to grow into his own unique character. As they grow, each child will need more room for studying, hobbies, school projects, music practice, sports equipment, and personal space. In a 4-bedroom cottage, this becomes difficult. Forest Lodge, with its larger interior and extended grounds, could support everything the children need as they approach teenage years. It also gives them a place to retreat from media attention. As they get older, public interest in their lives will increase. Forest Lodge's secluded location protects them from this pressure. A family home that can support royal duties. Even though the Wales family wants a normal life, they also have royal responsibilities that cannot be avoided. As Prince William moves closer to becoming king, his schedule will grow heavier. Meetings, briefings, interviews, and planning sessions will become part of his daily routine. Forest Lodge provides the necessary space for this kind of work. It likely contains private rooms that can be used as offices, quiet areas where Prince William can hold discussions, and secured spaces where confidential information can be handled. At the same time, the family can live comfortably, without feeling like royal work is taking over their personal life. Adelaide Cottage cannot support that level of activity. Its rooms are smaller, and its design focuses on intimacy rather than official business. Forest Lodge offers the stronger foundation needed for the transition from prince to king. This balance, family life, and royal duty, is crucial for a modern monarch. Forest Lodge allows both sides to exist peacefully. A property with the right kind of privacy. Privacy is one of the most valuable things for any royal. Adelaide Cottage is quiet, but it is not completely hidden. Forest Lodge, on the other hand, is buried deep inside the wooded areas of Windsor. It is surrounded by layers of trees, winding paths, and natural barriers. Anyone approaching the home would be easily noticed long before they reach the door. For a family raising the next future king, this is important. Forest Lodge allows them to take walks, ride bikes, and spend time outside without being watched. It also keeps strangers, photographers, and crowds far away. The area around Forest Lodge has a calm, untouched look that creates a feeling of safety and peace. This environment matches the values of Prince William and Princess Kate, who believe strongly in giving their children a grounded life filled with nature and normal experiences. Why the transition will likely happen. Naturally, a move from Adelaide Cottage to Forest Lodge would not be sudden or dramatic. Instead, it would unfold naturally as the children grow and the family's needs expand. No renovations would need to be rushed, and there would be no pressure to leave their current home quickly. The transition would simply reflect the family's changing stages. Forest Lodge offers flexibility. It could be a home for decades, possibly even for the rest of the children's lives. It could hold family traditions, birthdays, celebrations, and quiet moments, the kinds of memories that shape a family's identity. Over time, Forest Lodge might even become as associated with the Wales family as Clarence House was with Queen Mother, or as Windsor Castle was with Queen Elizabeth II, a symbol of the next generation. Every new era of the monarchy has a home that defines it. For Queen Victoria, it was Osborne House. For King George V, it was Sandringham. For Queen Elizabeth II, it was Windsor Castle during her later years. For Prince William and Princess Kate, Forest Lodge may become that defining home. It represents the values they want to bring into the future monarchy: warmth, nature, simplicity, stability, compassion, and strong family bonds. It also reflects their desire to stay connected to history while building something new. Forest Lodge is not just a place to live. It symbolically represents the next generation of the royal family stepping forward, a legacy meant to grow with time. When people think of royal estates, they often imagine gold walls, massive chandeliers, and long corridors. But sometimes, the most meaningful royal homes are the quiet ones, the ones hidden in the woods, surrounded by nature, filled with light, and built with love. Forest Lodge is that kind of home. It is where childhood meets responsibility, where privacy meets duty, where past traditions meet future hopes. For the Wales family, it is the place where life can be lived, not just as royals, but as parents and children who love each other deeply. Forest Lodge is more than a beautiful Georgian house hidden among the trees of Windsor. It is a place that represents the next chapter of a family who will one day lead the British monarchy. As Prince William, Princess Kate, and their children continue growing and learning, Forest Lodge quietly waits, ready to become the home where memories are shaped, milestones are celebrated, and the story of a future king unfolds. But to understand its importance fully, it helps to see how Forest Lodge fits not only into the family's private life, but also into the wider picture of the royal future. A home that will grow with the family. Adelaide Cottage is perfect for the early simple years of childhood. Its cozy rooms and peaceful garden paths help the Wales family feel close and connected. It offers everything they need right now: calm mornings, simple routines, and a quiet environment for learning and playing. But families change, and so do their needs. The children are getting older, their schedules are getting busier, and their roles in the royal family are becoming more important. Prince George especially is moving toward a life filled with expectations and responsibilities. Forest Lodge provides the space and environment needed for that next stage. Its larger bedrooms, grander hallways, and more expansive grounds will give the children room to grow and explore. They can study, practice music, enjoy hobbies, and take on new opportunities without feeling limited by space. The home's natural surroundings also provide a place where the children can escape from stress. The quiet woods, open meadows, and gentle breezes create a feeling of safety and peace that will be important as public attention increases around them. Forest Lodge is not just a house. It is a place designed to grow with the family over many years. A better space for a future king and queen. As Prince William moves toward the duties of becoming king, his work will expand. He will have meetings with advisors, charity leaders, world representatives, and important officials. These responsibilities require private rooms, secure areas, and enough space to manage royal business without interrupting family life. Forest Lodge provides that separation. In one part of the house, Prince William could run his daily schedule, private discussions, planning sessions, or charity work. In another part of the house, the children can continue their daily routines without disruption. Princess Kate can work on her early childhood projects and community programs in another area as well. This balance between royal duty and family life is essential, especially for a modern monarchy that values both tradition and connection with the public. Adelaide Cottage cannot support such a level of activity. Forest Lodge can. The emotional meaning behind Forest Lodge. Forest Lodge is more than a property chosen for convenience. It holds emotional value for the Wales family. It represents stability, protection, and a long-term place to call home. Something every family needs, but especially a royal family living under constant public attention. The house's location inside the wooded heart of Windsor makes it feel like a world of its own. The moment you walk through its grounds, the noise of the outside disappears. The trees block out the wind and light in a gentle way, making the estate feel private and serene. The air seems fresher, the grass greener, and the sunlight softer. This kind of environment is important for Princess Kate, who believes strongly in the power of nature to support mental and emotional health. She often speaks about how fresh air, outdoor play, and natural surroundings help children grow confident and strong. Forest Lodge gives their family that kind of daily environment. For Prince William, the estate symbolizes peace after years of intense public life. Growing up in royal homes filled with cameras, duties, and constant pressure taught him the importance of having a place to breathe. Forest Lodge offers that sense of quiet relief. Together, the home symbolizes family strength, comfort, and a bright future. How Adelaide Cottage will be remembered. Even when the family eventually moves to Forest Lodge, Adelaide Cottage will remain an important part of their story. It is where the children enjoyed some of their happiest early years, where they ran through open fields, played with their dog Orla, and built a childhood away from the public eye. The cottage also marks a turning point in the lives of Prince William and Princess Kate. It is the place where they began shaping their own vision of parenting and leadership. Instead of choosing a grand palace, they chose a home filled with warmth and simplicity. This decision reflects the kind of future they want to build for the monarchy, one rooted in kindness, humility, and family values. Adelaide Cottage will always hold memories of bedtime stories, family breakfasts, quiet walks in the garden, and moments of laughter echoing inside its 19th century walls. Even if it is not their forever home, it will forever be part of their legacy. Windsor as the royal heart of the future. As the Wales family continues to build their life in Windsor, the entire estate becomes a central part of the future monarchy. Windsor represents history, tradition, and continuity. But it also represents modern family life, privacy, and a connection to nature. The area stands between the old and the new, much like the Wales family themselves. Windsor was the home of Queen Elizabeth II during the final years of her life. It is where many royal memories were made, where state events took place, and where national celebrations were held. By choosing to raise their children in Windsor, Prince William and Princess Kate strengthen the ties between generations and prepare their family for the responsibilities ahead. Forest Lodge, being located within this historic estate, becomes part of this larger story. When the family eventually moves there, Windsor will truly become the center of their lives, just as it was for previous monarchs. A forever home built on legacy and love, Forest Lodge represents everything the future monarchy stands for: stability, care, responsibility, and family unity. It offers the Wales family a place where they can grow, learn, and prepare for the next stage of their journey. Imagine the children as teenagers walking through the long corridors of Forest Lodge on their way to school. Imagine Princess Charlotte practicing piano in a bright sunlit room. Imagine Prince George studying history, preparing for his future role, while Prince Louis plays outside with their dog. Imagine the family hosting gatherings, celebrating holidays, and creating new traditions inside a home filled with both love and purpose. Those moments may seem simple, but they are the heart of a family that will one day lead a country. The true meaning of home for the Wales family. When the world sees the royal family, it often sees palaces, ceremonies, and royal titles. But behind all of that are people who love each other, who laugh together, and who want the best life possible for their children. Adelaide Cottage gave the Wales family a warm beginning. Forest Lodge will give them a lasting foundation. Windsor gives them a sense of belonging. Together, these homes form the story of a modern royal family growing into the future. A final reflection: homes matter. Not because of size or luxury, but because of the lives lived inside them. Adelaide Cottage holds the memories of early childhood and peaceful beginnings. Forest Lodge holds the promise of future leadership, strength, and family unity. Windsor holds centuries of royal history and the footsteps of countless kings and queens. As Prince William, Princess Kate, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis take their next steps, these places will shape who they become and how they lead. Their journey from Adelaide Cottage to Forest Lodge is not just a move. It is a story of growth, responsibility, and love. It is the story of a family preparing for the future while honoring the past. And in that story, both homes will forever hold a special place. In the quiet, wealthy town of East Hampton, there stands a house that once looked like it belonged in a magazine. It had wide porches, long wooden shingles, tall windows, and a view of the Atlantic Ocean that stretched out like a painting. The house was called Grey Gardens, a name inspired by the soft gray of the sand dunes, the gray mist from the sea, and the pale flowers that once filled the gardens. For many years, it was a place of beauty, comfort, and elegance. But behind this lovely name and beautiful location lies a story unlike any other. It is the story of Edith Bouvier Beale, whom everyone called Big Edie, and her daughter Edith Bouvier Beale, who became famous as Little Edie. What happened inside this mansion is a mix of privilege, loneliness, stubbornness, creativity, heartbreak, and unbreakable family bonds. The family. Behind the house. To understand Grey Gardens, you have to understand the family who lived there. The Beales were not ordinary people. They were part of the American elite, connected to politics, wealth, and high society. Big Edie was the sister of John Black Jack Bouvier III, who was the father of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. That means Big Edie was Jackie's aunt, and Little Edie was her first cousin. This connection alone made the Beales a well-known and respected family. They had money, status, and a name that carried weight. People in East Hampton viewed them as refined, cultured, and artistic. Big Edie loved to sing and perform. She believed she had been born with a talent meant for the stage. Little Edie, meanwhile, dreamed of being a famous actress and dancer. In the early days, their life was full of excitement and possibility. But things changed very slowly, almost without anyone noticing at first. Financial problems began to creep into their lives, relationships grew strained, and somewhere along the way, the glamorous life the Beales once knew slipped out of their hands. The birth of Grey Gardens. The story of the mansion itself begins long before it fell into disrepair. Grey Gardens was originally built in 1897 as a beautiful 14-room shingle-style home. It sat on 4 acres of oceanfront land, surrounded by tall concrete walls imported from Spain in 1913 to protect the gardens from fierce coastal winds. The first owner, Mrs. Robert C. Hill, designed the gardens with the help of landscape architect Ruth Dean. They selected flowers in gentle shades, pale blues, soft purples, light pinks, and silvery greens, to match the gray walls, the dunes, and the seaside fog. The gardens were filled with climbing roses, lavender, phlox, delphinium, and wooden arbors covered in vines. When the ocean breeze passed through the flowers, the whole property looked like a watercolor painting. This quiet, beautiful world was the one Big Edie fell in love with. She and her husband, Phelan Beale, bought the house in 1924, ready to spend their summers by the sea. They hosted friends, threw parties, and enjoyed the calm luxury that East Hampton offered only to the rich. For many years, Grey Gardens was full of life. Music drifted out of open windows, guests gathered on the porch, lanterns glowed softly at night during long summer evenings. It was a place that seemed like it could never fade, but slowly, everything changed. The decline begins. The strongest blow came when Phelan Beale divorced Big Edie in 1946 by sending her a telegram from Mexico. Instead of a long conversation or a proper meeting, the news arrived in a short message. For a woman who had spent her life in society circles, this must have felt like a deep wound. Although Phelan sent a small monthly allowance of $300, equal to about $5,000 today, it was nowhere near enough to care for a large estate. The bills kept rising, repairs were ignored. The gardens, once so carefully designed, grew wild and tangled. Vines crawled up the walls, trees grew into the paths. Flowers that had once been arranged with care now fought their way through weeds. Inside the house, things changed even faster. As the money dried up, Big Edie could no longer maintain the rooms the way she once had. Dust gathered on the old furniture, paint peeled from the walls, fabrics faded and tore. The warmth and music that had filled the house were replaced by silence, except for the sound of the ocean and the cries of animals that wandered in. Little Edie returns home. During the 1940s, Little Edie lived in New York City, hoping to become a performer. She loved dancing, modeling, fashion, and theater. She created her own clothing styles using scarves, brooches, and bold colors. People said she had both beauty and talent, but success never fully came her way. When Big Edie became ill, Little Edie returned to Grey Gardens to help her mother. What she expected to be a short stay turned into a lifelong commitment. By the 1950s, mother and daughter were living together in the mansion with very little money, no staff, and no modern repairs. The isolation of the house grew. The garden swallowed the pathways. the roof began to leak. Rooms were closed off because they were too damaged to use, and slowly, cats, raccoons, and other animals began to make their home inside as well. Inside the mansion, as it fell apart, what happened inside the house became one of the most shocking parts of the Grey Garden story. By the 1960s, the interior was almost unrecognizable compared to its early days. Some rooms were filled with broken furniture stacked to the ceiling. Other rooms had no working lights and were lit only by candles or the sun through a cracked window. The kitchen stove had fallen through the floor into the basement. Toilets no longer worked, and the plumbing was completely broken. Cats walked freely across the counters. Raccoons lived in the attic and walls. Food was often stored in the unusual ways because the refrigerator barely worked. Clothing, old newspapers, photographs, and personal belongings were piled everywhere, making it impossible to see the original floors or carpets. Even with all the damage, Big Edie and Little Edie stayed. They believed that the house was their home, their history, and their destiny. They sang, argued, cooked, fed their animals, and talked about their past as if nothing around them had changed. To them, Grey Gardens was still alive. The raid that changed everything. In 1971, the Suffolk County Health Department received reports of unsanitary conditions at the estate. When inspectors arrived, they found exactly what the rumors described: a house filled with garbage, animals, broken structures, and no working utilities. The story quickly spread through national news. Newspapers printed photos of the decaying mansion. Reporters wrote dramatic articles about the reclusive mother and daughter living in a collapsing house. But what most people didn't know was that these two women were not strangers to fame. They were deeply connected to one of the most prominent families in America, and one member of that family stepped in. A famous family steps in. When news spread that Big Edie and Little Edie were living in terrible conditions, people were shocked. Newspapers showed pictures of peeling walls, overflowing trash, and wild animals crawling through the rooms. Most people in America had never heard of Grey Gardens before, but suddenly, everyone wanted to know who these two women were and why they were living this way. That was when the truth came out. The women were not random strangers. They were part of the Bouvier family, one of the most well-known families in the country, and connected to that name was one of the most famous women in the world, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, the former First Lady. Jacqueline, known to millions as Jackie Kennedy, grew up visiting East Hampton during the summer. She knew the area well, and she also knew the Beals because they were her relatives. Big Edie was her aunt. Little Edie was her first cousin. They had attended family parties together, laughed together, and shared the same family history. So, when Jackie and her sister, Lee Radziwill, learned what was happening at Grey Gardens, they did not see strangers living in a decaying mansion. They saw family members in trouble. No matter how complicated the relationships had been over the years, the bond was still there. The threat of eviction. Even with their family connection, the situation was extremely serious. After the health department inspected the house, East Hampton officials issued an eviction notice. The notice said Big Edie and Little Edie could not continue living in the house until it was cleaned and made safe again. The house had no running water, no working heat, broken floors, falling ceilings, and countless animals living inside. The risk to health was enormous. The town was prepared to forcibly remove the two women if they did not fix the situation. But the Beals had no money, not enough to repair the house, not enough to hire workers, and not enough to leave. They were trapped inside a place they loved, but could no longer control. Jackie and Lee arrive at Grey Gardens. This was when Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Lee Radziwill stepped in to help. They did not do it for publicity. They did not do it to appear in newspapers. They did it because they felt responsible for the two women who had once been part of their childhood, their family gatherings, and their memories. When Jackie arrived at Grey Gardens, she saw the damage with her own eyes. Broken window panes rattled in the wind, paint peeled off in long strips. Cats wandered freely. Raccoons stared down from the attic beams. The once beautiful gardens were now so overgrown that the pathways had disappeared under vines. The sisters offered something simple but powerful: help. They paid for repairs, cleaning, and the removal of debris. They hired workers who restored the electricity, fixed the plumbing, removed dangerous trash, and repaired the structure of the house enough to satisfy the town's requirements. They also made sure Big Edie and Little Edie could continue living in their home without being thrown out. It was a turning point. Without Jackie and Lee's support, Grey Gardens might have been boarded up, condemned, or demolished. But instead, it survived, just like the two women who lived in it. A film crew enters the story. While the house was being cleaned and repaired, something else happened that would change the way the whole world viewed the Beals. Filmmakers Albert and David Maysles, known for their honest and unscripted documentaries, learned about the situation. At first, the plan was to create a film about the Bouvier family's glamorous summers in East Hampton, the childhood memories of Jackie and Lee. But when that idea was canceled, the Maysles brothers noticed something else. The Beals themselves were living, breathing stories. Their personalities were captivating. Their conversations were strange but poetic. Their relationship was complicated, emotional, and full of history. Their daily lives inside the decaying mansion were unlike anything captured on film before. The Maysles asked to record Big Edie and Little Edie, not just in staged interviews, but in their natural routines, feeding cats, singing songs, talking about the past, and arguing in the way only mothers and daughters can. The Beals agreed. Inside the house, through the camera's eyes. When the filmmakers stepped inside Grey Gardens in 1973, they found a world frozen in time. Each room showed a different chapter of the mansion's long story. In what had once been the grand dining room, the elegant table was now covered in old newspapers, cans, plates, and clothes. Instead of crystal glasses and silverware, there were cat dishes and mismatched items piled high. The living room, which had once held parties with laughter and music, had parts of the floor missing. Half the room was unsafe to walk in. The other half was filled with stacks of books, broken chairs, abandoned paintings, and empty boxes. The original hardwood floors were hidden under years of debris. The hallway leading upstairs still had beautiful wooden banisters, but they were chipped and scratched. Some steps creaked loudly, others bowed under weight. Raccoons often walked along the upper landing, completely comfortable in their unusual home. The bedrooms showed signs of their old beauty. There were carved bed frames, lace curtains, old lamps, trunks filled with letters, and warped floorboards. But dust covered almost everything, and the once luxurious fabrics had faded into pale shades of their former colors. In Big Edie's room, the air was filled with the scent of old perfume, books, and memories. She kept her favorite records close by and loved to sing in bed, performing like she still had an audience. In Little Edie's room, colorful scarves hung from the bedposts, mirrors leaned against the walls, and clothes were arranged in creative ways. This was where she invented her famous costume designs, turning sweaters into skirts, towels into turbans, and brooches into centerpieces. The kitchen was one of the most shocking rooms. The stove had broken long ago, and parts of the floor beneath it had collapsed. Food was kept in unusual places, and the smell of animals drifted through the space. Every corner of the house told a story, not just of decay, but of the two women who refused to abandon their home, becoming icons through film. The Maysles brothers filmed the Beals for 6 weeks. They did not ask them to repeat lines, pose for shots, or pretend. Everything the audience would later see was natural and real. The documentary, released in 1975, was called Grey Gardens. Audiences were fascinated. People found themselves mesmerized by Little Edie's dramatic speeches, unusual outfits, and mysterious charm. Her voice, her movements, her expressions, everything she did felt like a performance, even when she wasn't trying. Big Edie, lying comfortably in her bed with her cats, acted like a queen commanding her crumbling kingdom. She sang, argued, reminisced, and laughed with a mix of pride and sadness. The film showed the world not just a house in ruins, but a complicated mother-daughter relationship filled with love, frustration, and dependence. Some viewers felt sympathy, others judged, but nobody ever forgot. Life after the documentary. After the release of the 1975 documentary, life inside Grey Gardens changed in unexpected ways. Suddenly, Big Edie and Little Edie were no longer hidden behind crumbling walls and overgrown gardens. The entire world now knew who they were. People recognized their faces, repeated their quotes, and became fascinated with their unusual lifestyle. Some viewers saw them as tragic figures, trapped by circumstances they could not control. Others found them inspiring, admiring their courage, their humor, and their refusal to give up the home they loved. And many simply found the pair unforgettable. Two women who seemed to live inside their own world, keeping their spirits alive even as their house fell apart. But inside Grey Gardens, the daily routine remained mostly the same. The Beals still lived among their many cats. They still sang songs, reminisced about old times, and argued like a mother and daughter who could never quite separate. Yet now, visitors occasionally drove by, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary home. Every now and then, someone would mail a letter, send a gift, or try to meet Little Edie, who had become a cultural figure almost by accident. Even with this new fame, the problems inside the house did not disappear. Repairs done earlier only covered the most urgent issues. Much of the mansion remained damaged, rooms were unsafe, the roof still leaked, and the overgrowth in the gardens continued to swallow the land. The home was still beautiful in its own strange way, but it had become impossible to ignore the reality. Grey Gardens was falling apart faster than its residents could save it. The death of Big Edie. On February 5th, 1977, the house changed forever when Big Edie passed away at the age of 81. Her death was a turning point, not only for the story of Grey Gardens, but for the life of Little Edie, who had spent decades caring for her mother and sharing the strange, isolated world they built together. Without her mother's presence, the house felt emptier. The singing stopped. The arguments stopped. The conversations that once echoed through the rooms faded into silence. Grey Gardens had always been unusual, but now it became something different. A shell filled with memories. For Little Edie, the change was overwhelming. She had lived most of her life in this house, tied to her mother's needs, emotions, and expectations. Now she faced a difficult question: stay and continue living alone in a decaying mansion, or leave and start a new life somewhere far away. Choosing between the past and the future was not easy. Grey Gardens held her entire history, but it also held years of struggle, loneliness, and decay. Trying to sell the mansion. Facing the truth, Little Edie decided she had no choice but to put Grey Gardens on the market. But selling the property was far more complicated than she expected. Most buyers who showed interest had only one plan: demolish the old mansion and build something new. The house was in such terrible condition that they saw no reason to save it. The land alone, 4 acres near the ocean, was incredibly valuable. To them, the house was nothing more than an obstacle standing in the way of modern development. But Little Edie refused to accept that. She could not bear the thought of bulldozers tearing down the place where she had grown up, laughed, cried, danced, dreamed, and fought with her mother. She insisted she would only sell to someone who promised to restore the mansion, not destroy it. One buyer after another walked away. It seemed impossible to find someone willing to take on the enormous task of saving a house that was practically falling apart. But then, in 1979, a couple named Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn arrived. The new owners enter the story. Ben Bradley, the executive editor of the Washington Post, and his wife Sally Quinn, a writer and journalist, were captivated by the property. They had heard about the famous Beals. They had seen the documentary. They knew the house was full of history, both beautiful and strange. Where others saw a problem, Sally saw potential. She believed Grey Gardens could be restored to its original glory. She made Little Edie a promise. The house would not be demolished. It would be saved. That was all Little Edie needed to hear. The selling price was $220,000, equal to about $1 million today. For the condition the house was in, the price was almost symbolic. What mattered most was the promise. With the sale complete, Little Edie faced one last decision. Should she clean out the house before leaving, or leave everything exactly as it was? Leaving Grey Gardens behind. According to Sally Quinn, she gave Little Edie 2 choices: leave the house broom clean, or leave everything exactly where it was. little Edie chose the second option. The thought of sorting through decades worth of memories, happy moments, painful years, old clothes, family treasures, and countless belongings was too emotional. So she simply walked out the door. She left behind furniture, boxes, photographs, letters, books, broken items, clothing, wicker chairs, antique tables, artwork, dishes, and a lifetime of personal belongings. Even the attic was packed from floor to ceiling with forgotten objects. When Ben and Sally entered the house after the sale, they described it as discovering a shipwreck. Every room was filled with debris and treasures mixed together. There were raccoon droppings in the attic, cat waste throughout the house, a stove collapsed through the floor, and entire rooms blocked off because they were filled with garbage. It was one of the most extreme home restoration challenges anyone had ever seen, restoring the mansion to life. Despite the enormous amount of work, Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn were determined to save the house. They hired teams of workers who spent months removing trash, cleaning floors, repairing walls, and restoring rooms. They also revived the gardens, rediscovering pathways and replanting elegant flowers. Slowly, Grey Gardens transformed from a decaying ruin into the magnificent estate it once was. The restored home soon appeared in architectural magazines and home decor publications. People were amazed that a mansion formerly filled with raccoons, collapsing floors, and piles of trash could become so beautiful again. Grey Gardens, which had survived so many years of neglect, finally had a second chance. Little Edie begins a new life. After leaving the mansion, little Edie moved to New York City for a short time, then relocated to Bal Harbour, Florida. There, she lived in a modest apartment far from the cold winters and harsh winds of East Hampton. She enjoyed peaceful days by the water, took long walks, stayed in touch with fans, and created friendships with people who admired her story. Although she no longer lived in Grey Gardens, she carried the memories with her. She wrote letters, reflected on her life, and continued feeling proud of her independence. Even without the mansion, she remained an icon, known for her resilience, her unique fashion, her expressive personality, and her unforgettable presence in the documentary. Grey Gardens enters a new era. Once the restoration was complete, the mansion entered an entirely new chapter. Gone were the days when broken furniture filled hallways and raccoons made their home in the attic. Gone were the stacks of newspapers, the decaying floors, and the smell of animals drifting from room to room. For the first time in decades, Grey Gardens looked alive again. When people walked by, they could hardly believe it was the same house they had seen in newspaper photographs years earlier. The windows sparkled in the sunlight. The garden paths, once completely swallowed by ivy, were open again. Flowers filled the air with color and fragrance, just as they had in the early 1900s. The porch was repaired, and soft ocean light fell across the wooden shingles, giving the house the warm glow it once had long ago. But even in its restored state, the mansion carried memories of the women who lived there, memories that could not be washed away by fresh paint or new floors. Every room held a story. Every corner echoed with history. Whether people walked through it or simply admired it from the outside, Grey Gardens always felt like a place where the past was still breathing. The rooms come back to life. The interior of the newly restored house was astonishing. When workers had first entered, many rooms were filled with damaged objects and broken items. But after the restoration, each room became a tribute to the mansion's original beauty. The dining room, once covered in decades of clutter, was polished and bright again. The long wooden table that had lost its shine was restored to a rich, glowing finish. Sunlight from the tall windows flowed across the room, making it feel grand and elegant, just as it had when Big Edie and Little Edie first moved there in the 1920s. The living room, which previously had a partially collapsed floor, now felt spacious and welcoming. The architectural details, carved beams, tall windows, and original wooden trim, were carefully repaired. The room no longer held piles of books and broken chairs. Instead, it looked like a proper East Hampton parlor, ready for quiet conversations or gatherings. The bedrooms upstairs were especially meaningful. They had once been filled with personal treasures, forgotten objects, and clothing scattered everywhere. After the restoration, each room felt peaceful and calm. In what had been Big Edie's room, the walls were repainted in soft tones, and the sunlight made the space feel warm. Even though her personal items were no longer there, the room still seemed to hold her presence, her singing, her humor, her strength. Little Edie's former bedroom was transformed as well. Clean floors, fresh paint, and restored windows created a bright, airy environment. Yet, even with the changes, it was easy to imagine her colorful scarves, dramatic outfits, and expressive energy lingering in the air. This was the room where she had danced, dreamed, and created her famous fashion combinations. The kitchen, once the most damaged room in the entire house, was completely rebuilt. New floors replaced the collapsed boards. Updated appliances replaced the broken ones. Clean white cabinets took the place of rusted and deteriorated shelves. It became a real kitchen again, fresh, functional, and full of life. Every restored room felt like a victory, a reminder that even when something falls apart, it can still be saved. A house that became a cultural symbol. As the years passed, Grey Gardens transformed from a decaying mansion into a cultural landmark. People who had seen the documentary traveled from all over the country to visit the street where the famous house stood. Some walked quietly past it, imagining the days when little Edie fed stray cats on the porch, or when Big Edie called down from her upstairs bedroom. Others took photos, hoping to capture a piece of the mansion's magic. But Grey Gardens wasn't just a house with a strange and compelling past. It became a symbol of survival, individuality, and the unpredictable paths life can take. The story of Big Edie and Little Edie touched people because it wasn't simple. It held beauty and sadness, comedy and tragedy, glamour and decay, all at once. The documentary was turned into a Broadway musical, an HBO film, books, stage plays, fashion editorials, and academic essays. Artists admired Little Edie's unique style, her scarves, her skirts, her confident voice. Scholars studied the mother-daughter bond and what it revealed about aging, independence, and emotional struggle. Film lovers praised the documentary for its honesty and rawness. More than anything, people were drawn to the human story inside the walls of Grey Gardens. This was not just a tale about a house falling apart. It was about two women who refused to let go of their home, even when the world outside moved on without them. Little Edie's final years. Far away from East Hampton in her Bal Harbour apartment, Little Edie spent her later years in quiet surroundings. The warm Florida sun suited her. She would often walk along the water, wearing outfits she designed herself. Even in her older age, she kept her creative spirit alive. She loved writing letters to friends and fans, reflecting on her past, and reading about new projects inspired by her life. Although Grey Gardens was no longer physically hers, she carried the house in her heart. She sometimes spoke about the good memories, her mother's singing, the beautiful gardens, the long summers by the sea. But she also remembered the challenges, the loneliness, and the weight of living inside a place that had become both a home and a prison. On January 14th, 2002, Little Edie passed away at the age of 84. She died quietly, far from the crumbling rooms and wild gardens of her youth. Yet even after her death, she remained an icon, a symbol of individuality, resilience, and eccentric charm. Once Grey Gardens is sold. Again. In 2017, after decades of living in the restored house, Sally Quinn decided it was time to move on. Her husband Ben Bradley had passed away, and the mansion, though beautiful, required constant care. She put Grey Gardens on the market for just under $20 million. When the house was listed, people around the world began talking about it again. They remembered the documentary, the photographs, the famous quotes, and the unforgettable characters. The estate became the focus of interviews, articles, and tours. Many wondered who would become the next owner, and whether they would honor the legacy of the Beals. In December 2017, the house was sold for $5.5 million to fashion designer Liz Lang, who appreciated the mansion not just for its beauty, but for its cultural significance. Under her care, Grey Gardens continued to host parties, charity events, and visitors enchanted by its history. The mansion became a place of celebration, a bright future built upon a complicated past. The lasting legacy of Grey Gardens. As the story of Grey Gardens continued into the 21st century, the mansion was no longer just a house on the edge of East Hampton. It had transformed into something much larger, a symbol known across the world. People who had never even visited Long Island still recognized the name. They knew the story of Big Edie and Little Edie, their extraordinary personalities, and the wild, collapsing home they refused to abandon. Grey Gardens became a legend not because of its architecture, but because of the people who lived inside it. The mansion's faded walls and overgrown gardens captured something human. A mixture of sorrow, comedy, stubbornness, courage, and creativity. The Beals' lives revealed what can happen when dreams collide with reality, when families drift apart, and when people hold on to the past with everything they have. The house had become an unforgettable character in its own right. What made Grey Gardens so different? There were many Gilded Age mansions in America, more luxurious, more expensive, or even more beautiful than Grey Gardens. But very few had a story like this one. What set the mansion apart was the unusual combination of elegance and decay, glamour and ruin, celebration and sadness. Inside its walls, days did not follow a normal routine. Big Edie might be singing old songs while lying in her bed, surrounded by cats. Little Edie might be dancing around the room in her homemade outfits, turning scarves and sweaters into dramatic fashion pieces. Arguments could turn into laughter. Complaints could turn into poetry. No visitor ever forgot the strange, almost theatrical atmosphere that filled the home. The house became a reflection of its residents, charming, chaotic, mysterious, stubborn, and unforgettable. Why people became fascinated with Little Edie. Although both women became well known after the documentary, Little Edie captured the world's imagination the most. There was something magnetic about her, something that felt both vibrant and tragic at the same time. She had once dreamed of becoming a performer in New York City. She wanted to dance on stage, model for magazines, and act in theater. She had the looks, the style, and the personality. But life pulled her in another direction, tying her to her mother and the collapsing house she could not leave. In the documentary, people saw her flair for drama. They heard her sharp, expressive voice and watched her make clothing out of whatever she found in her room. Towels, brooches, skirts pinned together from sweaters. She moved like someone who had lived 1,000 lives inside her imagination. Even the way she spoke felt like poetry. She could talk for hours, switching from jokes to memories to sudden bursts of emotion. Her style became iconic. Designers, artists, and performers admired her originality. What may have looked unusual to some people actually revealed a spirit that refused to be broken. She did not follow fashion. She created it herself. Even decades after the film's release, people continued to quote her lines, imitate her outfits, and write books and articles analyzing her personality. She had become something rare in American culture, a true original. Big Edie's complicated strength. While Little Edie received most of the public attention, Big Edie had a powerful presence of her own. She was a woman who had once been full of energy, music, and charm. She loved singing and believed she had been born to perform. She filled the house with old records, sheet music, photographs, and memories of glamorous days long past. On the surface, she appeared demanding, dramatic, and stubborn, but she also had warmth, humor, and a deep love for her daughter. Their relationship was complicated, sometimes affectionate, sometimes tense, yet impossible to separate. They relied on each other emotionally, financially, and mentally in ways that outsiders often misunderstood. Even in the darkest times, Big Edie held on to the belief that the world had not forgotten her. She wanted to feel adored, celebrated, and recognized. And in a strange way, through the documentary and the decades of fascination that followed, she eventually received the attention she always craved. Inside the restored mansion, what visitors see today. Although the house has changed owners and gone through major restoration, people who visit or view photographs of Grey Gardens today often say the same thing. The spirit of the Beals still lingers in the air. The interiors no longer contain broken furniture or piles of forgotten objects. Instead, restored rooms show off the mansion's beautiful early design. The wooden floors shine again, the staircase is sturdy and elegant, the bedrooms are light-filled, airy, and calm. The kitchen, rebuilt from the ground up, looks modern yet respectful of the home's history. Visitors often imagine how the Beals once moved through these spaces. They picture little Edie sweeping past in her scarf-wrapped outfits, or Big Edie calling out from her upstairs bedroom with her cats curled around her. Even without their belongings, the house feels like a museum of their lives, not because it displays artifacts, but because the structure itself holds their memories. Why Grey Gardens still feels magical. There is something almost mystical about the mansion. People who study it say that Grey Gardens represents the collision between dreams and reality. It shows how fragile wealth can be and how quickly a life of comfort can turn into one of isolation. But it also shows resilience. Even when the house collapsed, even when the gardens turned wild, even when the roof leaked and the floors cracked, Big Edie and Little Edie refused to leave. They stayed because the house was part of who they were. Many people admire that loyalty, even if they don't fully understand it. Others see the story as a reminder of how important family connections can be, and how powerful they remain, even when life becomes complicated. And for many viewers, the Beals' lives feel like a cautionary tale about money, fame, and the pressures placed on women in society. Whatever meaning people find in the story, Grey Gardens continues to inspire fascination and emotion. The mansion in modern culture, the Beals' story produced far more than a documentary. It became a creative spark for filmmakers, writers, musicians, designers, and actors. A Broadway musical brought the story to life with songs that captured the intensity of the Beals' personalities. An HBO film starring Jessica Lange and Drew Barrymore introduced the story to a new generation. Fashion designers referenced Little Edie's unique style in runway collections. Scholars wrote essays exploring the themes of independence, decline, and mental health. Even now, social media accounts share clips of Little Edie dancing, talking, or creating outfits. Younger audiences discover the documentary and become instantly drawn to the unusual world inside the mansion. Grey Gardens, once nearly forgotten and left to decay, became a global cultural touchstone, a story that continues to grow. The story of Grey Gardens is not finished. Every year, new articles, tours, films, and discussions appear. People debate the choices Big Edie and Little Edie made. They talk about whether the documentary was fair or intrusive. They wonder how different their lives might have been with more support, more money, or different opportunities. Grey Gardens lives on because the story does not offer simple answers. Instead, it leaves people thinking about family, aging, identity, dreams, disappointments, and the homes that shape our lives. The mansion stands today as proof that even when everything seems lost, there is always a way for history to survive. Looking back at the rise and fall of a mansion, when people reflect on the history of Grey Gardens, they often see it as a story about a house that fell apart. But in truth, it is much more than that. It's the story of two women who tried to hold on to their identities, their memories, and their dignity even as everything around them changed. The mansion went from a glamorous summer retreat to a collapsing maze of broken rooms. But behind every cracked ceiling, every fallen beam, every dusty antique, and every shutter that banged in the wind, there was a piece of the Beals' lives. Grey Gardens became a symbol of how quickly fortunes can fade, but also of how strong the human spirit can be. Even when the house was falling into ruin, Big Edie and Little Edie stayed, because it was the one part of their lives that still felt like home. And in the end, the house survived. Not perfectly, not easily, but with a history so powerful that it became larger than the building itself. What the Beals taught the world. The story of Big Edie and Little Edie is full of contradictions. They were wealthy, yet they lived in poverty. They were isolated, yet the world knew their names. They were mocked and judged, yet also admired and loved. They were both trapped and free at the same time. People who watch the documentary often walk away with very different feelings. Some see sadness, others see bravery. Some see two women who lost their way. Others see two people who refused to let society decide how they should live. Through their words, their singing, their arguments, and their memories, they showed the world what it looks like to keep going, even when the world no longer makes sense. And the heart of it all was always the same. A mother and daughter who loved each other fiercely, even when they didn't understand each other. Their bond, messy, emotional, imperfect, kept them together through decades of hardship. Inside the emotional walls of the mansion, it's easy to focus on the physical details of Grey Gardens, the broken floors, the raccoons, the piles of belongings. But the emotional walls were even more complicated. Big Edie had always lived with a sense of grandeur. She believed she deserved admiration. She loved attention, music, performance, and the idea of being adored. Even when she was older, she still held on to the confidence of her youth, refusing to see herself as powerless. Little Edie, on the other hand, carried dreams that had been put on hold for so long that they almost became ghosts inside her. Her talent was real, her beauty was real, her imagination was bright and unstoppable, but fate tied her to her mother, and to the house that refused to let her leave. Their lives wound together so tightly that neither one of them could truly separate from the other. Even when they argued, even when they felt frustrated or misunderstood, they continued to share their days, their meals, their stories, and their hopes. Inside Grey Gardens, every room held a part of their hearts. What inside the house revealed about them. Visitors who entered the mansion during its worst years often described the interior as chaotic or shocking. But the rooms also revealed something deeper, a living museum of the Beals' personalities. In Big Edie's room, the clutter of letters, records, framed photographs, and books showed her longing for the attention she once had. She kept old sheet music close by, as if she could perform again at any moment. Her bed became her stage, and the cats curled around her feet became her audience. In Little Edie's room, scarves draped over the furniture, mirrors propped against walls, and outfits pinned together with brooches painted a picture of a woman who never stopped creating. Even in decay, she found beauty. Even in isolation, she found style. Her imagination filled every corner, turning a collapsing bedroom into a runway. The hallways, once polished and bright, revealed the passage of time through their worn boards. The stairs groaned underfoot, as if echoing the years of footsteps from family members long gone. The kitchen, with its broken stove and sagging floor, showed how hard everyday life had become. But even there, Little Edie danced, cooked, sang, and carried on. Every inch of the house told the truth. The Beals never stopped living, even when the world expected them to disappear. The power of the documentary. When the Maisels brothers released Grey Gardens, they didn't just share a film. They opened a window into a world nobody had seen before. They showed viewers a story that was strangely beautiful, strangely sad, and strangely funny, all at the same time. People couldn't stop talking about it. The Beals instantly became cultural figures. Their quotes were repeated everywhere. Their outfits inspired fashion designers. Their strong personalities sparked debates about independence, aging, and mental health. For many viewers, the documentary didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like entering someone's private life, almost too personal, too intimate, too real. That was part of its power. It forced the world to pay attention to two women who had been ignored, dismissed, or forgotten. And the film gave the Beals something they had never expected: immortality. A house saved from oblivion. When Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn restored the mansion, they didn't just repair rotten wood and crumbling walls. They saved a piece of American history. They preserved a story that would have been lost if the house had been bulldozed. By rebuilding Grey Gardens, they made it possible for future generations to understand the Beals' lives. They made it possible for visitors to walk through the rooms and imagine the past. They brought color and order back to a house that had once been defined by chaos and collapse. Even though Little Edie never returned, the restoration honored both women. Their memories, their struggles, their stubbornness, and their fierce attachment to the home. The house in modern times. Today, Grey Gardens stands not as a ruin, but as a restored and beloved landmark. It is a place where parties are held, guests gather, and gardens bloom beautifully once again. The home appears in magazines, news articles, and online tours. Visitors admire the elegant living room, the restored dining room, the bright bedrooms, and the welcoming front porch. And even though the mansion is clean, polished, and repaired, people who walk through it often say that it still feels like the Beals are there somehow, laughing, singing, arguing, or telling stories, just like they did decades ago. The spirit of the house never disappeared. It simply became quieter. The final reflection. Grey Gardens is more than wood, nails, flowers, or walls. It is a story about dreams that didn't come true, about love that refused to die, and about the courage to keep going even when the world seems to crumble around you. It is also a reminder that every house holds secrets, every family has struggles, and every life is more complicated than it seems from the outside. Big Edie and Little Edie lived a life that most people will never understand, but they lived it honestly, loudly, boldly, creatively, and without apology. And in doing so, they left behind one of the most unforgettable stories in American history.